Some people live on the front lines of the struggle between good and evil. Others, like us, bear witness. I'm Therese Apel. You may know me from the cases I've covered as a lifelong crime reporter and the stories I've told about law enforcement and crime across Mississippi. Along with my co-hosts, Nicole Crowell and Amanda Johansson, we've seen both the best and the worst of human nature. We believe there's no greater responsibility than telling the stories of the men and women who pursue the truth, who hunt the monsters, who speak for the victims, and who piece together some of the most significant investigations of our time. Welcome to Investigation Homicide.
While on the force, I learned that an officer is only as good as his team and the gear that he carries. Ultimately, that is what helped me make the decision to supply and support the demands that the officers need.
From uniforms to upfitting service vehicles, our family strives to connect people with the resources they need. From enforcing the law, fighting fires, or simply protecting the ones they love. At the Southern Connection Police Supplies, our family is here for yours. Stop by and see for yourself.
Hey everybody, welcome to Investigation Homicide. Thanks to our sponsor, Southern Connection, for always being there for us in the clinch. We've worked with them in various capacities for a while, and we're glad to have them as a sponsor. As you can see today, Amanda and I are cuddling.
Yes, we are.
That's right. We have a full house today, and we can't wait to tell you about our guest as if they haven't already read it in the description.
Right, yes. We've been posting about it.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll go ahead and jump right into it. We are so excited to have Attorney General Lynn Fitch here with us today, as well as the supervisor of her Human Trafficking Task Force, Favian Jones. So let's go ahead and just have this conversation. General Fitch, thank you for being here. We really love having you.
Oh, thank you. It's such an honor to be here and got great things to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So start us off. Now, I guess I've worked with you a good bit, so I know a little bit about you, and I know that you and I both have Marshall County roots. And
we do.
That's so fun. But tell us a little bit about kind of your career. Walk us through what got you here.
Well, you know, it's a God-scripted career. I think all of us are put where we're supposed to be at the right time, at the right place. I actually started my career at the Attorney General's office. So it is so humbling to come back as the Attorney General and have an amazing team that I get to work with every single day. I loved it back then and enjoyed every moment that I got to serve in that capacity. Then I went on to serve as counsel of the House of Representatives. Then I was in private practice for a number of years, and I came back under the Governor Barbour administration. Ran a couple of agencies for him, the Department of Employment Security, and then also the State Personnel Board. And then I ran for state treasurer and was so honored to serve in that capacity for 2 terms. And now I'm in my 2nd term as Attorney General. So it's been an amazing experience. Just the people, the networking, the relationships, the trust, and just truly to serve. I think that's what's so special. At the end of the day, in our office, it's like, who do we help today? How do we make a difference? It's just a very compassionate office. And then all of my career has just been like that. Again, how do we change people's directions? How do we uplift people? How do we empower one another? So I feel very blessed to now land where I am and have an amazing team and you all that I get to work with.
Well, and I have to say that I know that among law enforcement, you have a little bit of a reputation for not being scared to put on a vest and get in the back of, or not the back of a police car, but get in a police car and actually go on some of these operations and see how some of these things go. And that's something that you don't always see from people at the top.
Well, absolutely. That's so important because I got to be out there with the teams, you know, and it's so important to have our state, our local, our federal partnerships with law enforcement, first responders. So being on the ground, being in the operations helps me really explain to people who don't understand what we all see and what we're all going through, that these are people, these are victims. How are we helping them? What are we doing? So I did have to get my own vest, though. For a while after you sit in surveillance in a really big vest, it felt like a turtle. So I do have my own vest.
Right.
Yes.
Got to have one of those.
That is very much a good description of what it is like to be a female in law enforcement when you get a hand-me-down vest. It's a turtle. Yep. And it's good.
So proud of my vest.
Well, and now I want to throw it over to you, Favian. Now, you came from Tunica County. We were just talking about how much I love your sheriff. He is so kind. He's such a good guy. Talk to us about your career and what brought you to where you are now.
So I started my law enforcement career Memphis PD, where once I left Memphis PD, I came back to Marks Police Department. And that's when I transitioned over to Tunica County, where I started out as a patrolman. Once I left patrol, I was a juvenile investigator 4.5 years. And that opened up my eyes like to a lot. I would see so much when as a juvenile investigator, like missing kids, and just to know what I know now, it's like a lot of those kids are being trafficked, missing kids, anywhere from, it was a lot of sex crimes, a lot of sexual activity with family members and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to get a little bit deeper. And then I became the commander over investigations. Once I became the commander, I came over to Mississippi Attorney General's office, and I was put in the position to just be a consumer fraud investigator. And then that's when I was moved over to human trafficking. And then that's when I took off. I was like, I want to know more. I want to know more. I would go to the trainings and I would see more. And I was like, hey, I missed that. And now it's on my conscience. It's like, what all did I miss when I was a juvenile investigator? And so in this position now, it's like, okay, you missed a lot. You missed a lot when you was a juvenile investigator. Now it's like, now you have a good team. Attorney General Fitch, she's awesome. She supports the team 100%. And so now what we have with this team here is like, you can't miss it. It's like, if I miss something, I have a partner, he'll jump on it. Or Ashley, who's another investigator, she'll jump on it. Or, great directors, deputy directors, people like that, they'll assist us with, hey, let's go move this investigation a little bit further. And so now it's like human trafficking is like top of my game. It's like, that's what I want to do. I enjoy doing it.
Well, and I want to throw out there, too, if you don't know it about Amanda, she also has worked in various capacities with human trafficking. We've talked about ICAC, that kind of thing. So I was glad you got to be here today.
Yeah, no, I love that the past few guests have lined up, but they have been in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So it's always fun.
And it has just worked out that way.
It really has.
So the reason we're here today is because if you're on Facebook, if you're out there in the internet anywhere, you're aware of the large-scale conversation going on right now about human trafficking. Of course, we've got all the stuff about the Epstein files and everything else. And I think one of the things is that is so big and it's so extreme in so many ways. But then on the same note, I have worked with police officers in various communities that have been like, human trafficking is not a real thing. So the reason we've brought the Attorney General's office here today is to talk about what Mississippi actually sees in terms of human trafficking. What does it look like? What are we actually doing out there to combat it in our state? But what's the truth of it? Because you have two very extreme ways of looking at it in common conversation right now. So General Fitch, when we talk about human trafficking, what do you see that people are misunderstanding or getting wrong the most?
Well, I think there's this true disbelief that it's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's not in our state. It's not in our communities. When the reality, it is. It's here. It's in our state. And we've risen to the occasion. We've understood, hey, it is here. Everybody's come together. Favian is amazing and leading the team, and everybody is engaged. So the outreach, information is really powerful, but you have to share it. And that's why this is so incredible to be able to talk about it. So getting people to understand it's truly there. How do we bring everybody into the fold to look at it and then to go forth, provide information? And then these are true victims. And they didn't ask for that, but, changing the dynamics, the mindset. Most of these individuals are trafficked by a family member or somebody that they loved and trusted. Many times they don't even see themselves as victims because this is how they grew up. This is what their expectations are. And so if you're being trafficked by a family member, you don't see yourself in that capacity. You just think that's normal. That this is how you get your food. This is how you get your purses or whatever the case might be. So they don't really see themselves in that capacity. But what we've been able to do together, and again, it's been a true partnership, all of us being involved, is to go out and say, no, we're going to help these victims. And we have to look at it from a holistic approach, right? The law enforcement, the part going out, really being prepared, doing the takedowns, having the capability to get in there safely, extract this individual, because we all know this is a dangerous situation. This is not like, oh, we're just going to take down. No, there are always guns, there are always weapons of different magnitude involved. There are always drugs involved. So we have to look at it from that perspective. But then the holistic approach is to come in and say, these are victims. How do we help them become survivors? So when we are able to get that individual out, then there's a whole team sitting there ready to help them too. But it's really about awareness, talking about it. The Be the Solution initiative that was kicked off, which is hard to believe now, in 2021. And here we are just kicking off phase 4 a couple of weeks ago. was really crucial to getting people in our state to understand the magnitude of human trafficking, what to look for, how could everybody be a part, whether it was a medical community. Certainly DPS is a huge partner. Again, whether it's your commercial truck drivers, your convenience stores, your linesmen, hospital, everybody has a role to play. And I think we've done that incredibly well in our state. And it's really shown that as Mississippians, we're not allowing that to continue, and we're going to go after the traffickers.
Now, talk to me briefly about what does the Mississippi law say about human trafficking, and kind of did it take some difference in the law to make people on the law enforcement level understand prostitution versus human trafficking, and are they really that different?
That's a great point. I think early on people said, oh my goodness, these individuals are just in a prostitution ring and they're in a prostitution situation, when in fact they were being trafficked. And we didn't recognize the signs. We didn't understand that these individuals, they didn't want to be there. This is just part of what's happening to them. So originally, most of those individuals were arrested and charged with prostitution because law enforcement didn't understand, the community didn't understand, and that was kind of the expectation. Well, the law was changed to say, no, we understand this is human trafficking. You're being exploited. And I think that has been an amazing game changer for individuals, for how we do our operations, how we go in to protect these individuals. And that's made a true difference. You know, many of those individuals got a drug charge or got a prostitution charge. We actually have some legislation up right now to try to expunge that. Because again, as a survivor, you don't need a felony record. You need to be able to figure out how to get skilled. You need to figure out what's my workforce position look like. You need to be able to move forward with your life. And you can't do that if you're looking for a job and you've got felony convictions because you were caught up beforehand. So we're really looking at it from the legal perspective too. How do we help these individuals with their next steps on their journey? Because our role is also to help them get back into society without any shame or blame. None of them asked for that. None of them wanted to be in a trafficking situation.
Right. Well, and that's something that I was telling you guys before we started. I had a friend in high school that years later I was covering a prostitution bust, was what we were calling it at the time. And these were, quote, hookers. I mean, that was what we didn't know what human trafficking was. And I remember I did this whole story, and I had these girls, getting cuffed on my story. And I got this email from this girl I went to high school with, and she just said, I think these girls are being trafficked. I was trafficked by a motorcycle gang. It happens. I think these are victims, not necessarily criminals. And it was something I'd never had to think about before. And that really that was the first time I had heard it, and it really set it in motion for me. Fabian, for you, as you guys do the work that you do, and Amanda, jump in here with questions if you know this better than I do, which I think you do. Are you guys running across, like, my friend was trafficked by a motorcycle gang? Are you seeing, organized crime involved, gangs, that kind of thing?
Not necessarily. Now, not to say that it won't happen here in Mississippi. The biggest thing that we're seeing is like family members, someone that's so close to this individual. It could be a family member, it could just be an acquaintance, it can be a romantic partner. People like that, that's where it starts. Someone who that victim feels like they can trust, it starts there. So as far as like the large organized crimes, the networks, it's a little bit difficult here in Mississippi to see that. And when it comes to human trafficking, it's really hard to see. It's one of those hidden crimes. And so when we are basically running our operations, or we are scrubbing the internet, just trying to see where the victims are, if we're trying to find traffickers and things like that, it's not large organized crimes or basically networks. It's someone that's close to this individual. And that comes even when we're interviewing our victims. It's rarely those type of stories. It's my boyfriend. That's my significant other. That's my family member. That was my dad. And vice versa. That was my mom. My mom did this to me. And so that's what we see.
I think that it's really important for people to understand that trafficking looks different depending on the area that you're in. So maybe in a large city, Dallas, or maybe on the other coast, maybe they do have things that are more heavily focused on organized crime. But Mississippi, I definitely see where it's more of a familial type stuff. But I am curious to know, how are y'all receiving information, like reports? How are local law enforcement getting reports? Is it victims? Is it tips? How is that happening?
That's a good one. So we receive our tips based off from the Attorney General's website. Someone can go in and they can file a complaint there. We also receive tips off of Simply Reports. We also receive tips from the National Human Trafficking Hotline tip. We receive those tips, but at the same time, we also receive information on traffickers based off of operations that we may run, or just collaboration with local, state, and federal partners. Like once we collaborate with them, if they reach out to us and they say, "Hey, this is what we have," we always go out and we assist. That just recently we had a department up north that reached out to us and it's like they need assistance. Well, we stopped what we were doing to scrub the internet to locate and let them know, hey, here's a victim. We contacted victim services for them, and then victim services took over at that point.
Well, and I guess, General, this is probably a question for you. When you have that, so that goes into play, you build a case. I know that at least in my career watching law enforcement, I know it's even hard just to get a rape case prosecuted, or once you do to win it, because there is so much back and forth. What is it about when you prosecute a human trafficking case? What does that law look like, and is it difficult to put that kind of case together in a way that you can take it to court?
Well, and you're exactly right. It's very different. But on the education piece, we work with our DAs, and they are great, and the DAs and their teams to really talk about, what does this look like? How do we prosecute that? We do a lot of training for our attorneys, not only for our attorneys that prosecute in our office, but also for our DAs. And again, what do they look for? It's different. There are different segments you need to be looking for in this prosecution. How do we do the operation? And a few years back, we went to the legislature, and I've been very grateful to them. They've understood that there's an issue on human trafficking. They're willing to change it to make it more amenable, like taking away the prostitution charges. We went a couple years ago and said, look, we need to be able to prosecute. It's a little different to prosecute. So we need to be able to set this up and these components and how we can do that. And so we have new trafficking laws. So again, we're taking that very seriously. Our first case that we tried under the new human trafficking laws was last year. And for that predator, we got 48 years day for day.
Excellent.
So strong message, say, if you're going to do that, no, we're coming after you. We're going to get you in this operation, and we're going to prosecute you very hard.
And once you've been able to do that, and this is a question really for both of you, I think, but once you've been able to do that and make that statement, what do you see on the streets with that? Like, does that change either the way people report or the way the criminals hide things, or is there any ripple effect?
It is. Now, oftentimes, like what we'll see once we actually get the trafficker on the operation, a lot of times it comes to trying to get that victim to trust you. And once you build that trust, and we have to stay in contact with victim services, and victim services have to stay in contact with the actual victim. And so when they stay in contact with one another, the key thing for us as law enforcement and also victim services is not to re-traumatize the victim. The victim is always in fear if we re-traumatize her. And so our job is basically just being her safety point. Victim services is her safety point. And if we continue that pattern, it's like continue running it over to victim services and let them continue to provide resources for them. Once they continue to provide the resources for them, they begin, they start coming out of the shell. And it's not going to take the first time that they see victim services. It's not going to take the second time. Sometimes it takes 12 months. It may take 2 years. It's a repeated cycle. And so once they have gone in enough and they say, I'm tired and enough is enough, that's when we start seeing progress. But right now, if we get them on the first operation and just say we get them again on the second operation, we know it's not over. It may be, but if it's not over, we'll continue to push for victim services to provide resources for them.
Well, and General Fitch, I feel like what he's describing, that need to go back and just keep working on it, is something that you see with a lot of different kinds of sex crime victims. Why does it take so long for them sometimes to admit that they are victims?
Well, it's hard. They don't see themselves in that capacity, and they're very vulnerable, and just think they've been leveraged time and time again. It's very hard for them to overcome. And Favian, it's a great point on the trust factor. We have to spend a lot of time with these individuals to really build that trust, to say, hey, we're all here to help you. Everybody on this operation is here to lift you up, to empower you, to help you on your next step of the journey. And again, they are fearful. They don't know any other way of life. They've been brainwashed. So they are traumatized already when we get them. So we have to really work on that. Now, we know many times, as he said, we're not going to keep them that first time. It may be the second time, the third time, but we're going to send them with care and compassion. Here's our numbers. We will come get you anytime you need us. And I think it's just an effort to continue to build that trust and that relationship. And it may be months and months, and they call us and they say, hey, we're ready. We just can't take this enough. And then we're there to help them. So I think it's such a process. Sometimes we get the victims at the very beginning, and they say, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for coming to get me. I think one of the most important things that we've done in the last year, as we've really built out this incredible team, is we've now added survivors. So having a survivor or multiple survivors that sit across the table from the victim and say, hey, I was you. These people are here. They're going to help you. You need to not be afraid of them. You need to trust them. They're going to get you to victims assistance programs, facilities, showers, whatever you might need. And here's the other very challenging part. When we do these operations, many times we find children. So our victims now have a baby in the bathtub. There's a toddler. So you have to look at it from that perspective too. And I mean, that's just heart-wrenching that now you've got her and you've got this baby, and we need to make sure she understands that she trusts us to help her as well as her child. So we have to look at it from every angle and how we can be there to be uplifting for these individuals.
When you talk about children in that situation, of course, because of the national discussion right now, you think of them as victims of the trafficking itself, but you don't think about the fact that potentially this victim is thinking, if I cooperate, what if they take my child away and put him in the system?
That's exactly right. And, the traffickers, they hold that over their heads. Again, they've leveraged them in that capacity with this child. Just looking at the numbers, again, with all of our operations we've done, over 60 plus operations, multi-jurisdictional operations with all of our partners, we've been able to recover, rescue 380 folks right here in the state of Mississippi. And 23 of those were minors. And again, that's so heartbreaking. But again, trying to get them to safety, into a protective space, it's well worth it. And certainly then to prosecute the traffickers. I think we've now prosecuted about 200 of them already. I want to continue to send that strong message. If you do that and you take advantage of people in our state, we will come after you and we will prosecute you. And our role as a society and in our office and as law enforcement is all of us working together as a coalition. We're here to help those victims become survivors.
That's so awesome to hear. Like, listening to you, I can tell that you're very passionate about it. Favian, you talked about offering the services. Can you tell us a little bit more about the services? And is that something that is directly offered by your office, or are you partnering with outside resources?
Yeah, so we partner with different services, different victim services here in Mississippi. Services can include anywhere from, like Attorney General Lynn Fitch stated, it could be showers, it could be clothing, it could be a backpack with different items in it, just personal care items. They assist with jobs. It's just different resources that they may need. And again, like, victim services is there for them. So that way they're not felt like victims. And they're treated as individuals. And so they offer different things. And it's just like different victim services provide different things. Now, I know one, a lot of times we may need their cell phones. There is one that we partner with. They actually provide a cell phone for them. And so that's a plus for us on our sides, because if we take a victim's cell phone, it turns upside down. It's hard, and it's like, how do you get past this situation? It's like they want to fight us now, and so we don't want that. It's like, if you get the cell phone, hey, can you all assist with getting them a new cell phone to stay in contact with them? That's how we push forward, and so they provide the cell phones. I mean, they're really, really good.
Yeah, I would be upset if someone took my cell
Right,
phone.
yeah.
Our cell phones are our lives at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
But they offer such amazing services for these individuals. It's very refreshing. They help them in every capacity, and so many of them are faith-based driven, and just have these. Assistance in praying for these people, lifting them up. It just warms your heart to see that. And as Favian said, just having something that's their own. Their own backpack with their own stuff, and it's not travel size, because you want them to feel like you are an important part of society. You're not just the pass through with the travel size. We want them to feel grounded. We want them to know they can count on all of the people at the shelter, all the victim assistance coordinators, everybody that is a part to helping them on their path to recovery.
Well, and that's something that I feel like that I have learned through the years of covering these situations, is that the way they control these victims is often just simply dehumanizing them. And so they learn to live with less and to be treated like less than. And so just by giving them a cell phone or giving them a whole bottle of shampoo, it really can be like, hey, you know what? We see you. We understand that you're not just what I can sell you for, and to me, that what you guys are doing is so important for that reason too, because I think anyone who has felt like, whether it's a bad relationship or it is I'm being trafficked, that feeling of I don't matter, it's so debilitating, and you guys are giving them that back.
We want to give them their confidence. We want to give them their self back, because it has been taken. And for so long, they don't know any other way. And it's very, like you said, it's very demeaning for them. And again, helping them restore who they are and where do they want to go, because many of them, that's so short-sighted. It's like, I'm just getting through this. I'm just getting through another night. I've just got to get through this week. I've got to get my payments. I got to get the drugs, whatever the case might be. And this finally says, no, you mean something, and we want to help you. You really have a life and a journey, and we believe in you in the state of Mississippi. And I think that's really what has set us apart. Everybody has rallied together. Every time we do an operation, every time we want to do outreach, our communities, everybody stands up and says, we want to help. What can we do that makes a difference? And that's really made us be, known nationally for what we do in our state. And it's a great opportunity to say, hey, it's really important to share this information. It's important to share how we do these operations. It's important how we share our trainings, how we're able to bring everybody together. That really signifies unity and strength for our state.
Absolutely. Let's take a minute just to talk about how we pay the bills here, because we're having this very important conversation, okay? These are the kind of things that we started Investigation Homicide to do, to talk about the things that actually matter in law enforcement, to let you hear firsthand from the investigators, from the first responders, from the lawmakers, from the attorneys who are doing this. And that is made possible by Southern Connection Police Supplies. Again, they are paying the bills for us right now. We are so grateful to have them as a sponsor. If you got to see the commercial at the beginning of the podcast, you saw young Brian. He is now a little more seasoned, but we are so grateful for him as a friend. And I'm supposed to tell you guys, they have Gen 6 Glocks in, and I will post a picture of one in the comments once we're done with the podcast. So get excited about that. Of course, they are for first responders. So if you're a first responder, head out there. They're in Ridgeland. And again, tell them that you heard about them on Investigation Homicide, because we're just so excited to have them as our sponsor. So Amanda, this is obviously, like we've talked about, this is something that you've done for all these years, and you've been on some of the task forces and you've done all that. How have you seen it change with this administration being a part of things?
Well, there's a shift in the focus on educating kind of law enforcement around the state. So that's a huge thing that wasn't there before you began the task force. Like, there was a certified human trafficking course that was certifying investigators. But kind of once you put your name on it, it kind of makes it broadcast across the state. So that's been huge in educating law enforcement. Because unfortunately, some of my friends, they just struggle with wanting to go out there and kick in doors, and sometimes you just got to be a little softer than that. So I think that's huge. And then I'm still shocked at the law proposing that expungement for this kind of stuff. That's so huge because these people are already met with so much resistance. So for them to be able to have something to help them get back into society is so huge.
There's another piece of legislation that's up as well, and I think it's important for our communities. And that is to say that if you have been convicted as a human trafficker, you should also register as a sex offender.
Yes, I've
and
heard
so
about
that
that.
law is
Yes.
up as well. And I think that's very important too, because you need to know if people are in your neighborhoods and they are a human trafficker and have been convicted. So we're very optimistic that that's going to pass as well.
If you're a lawmaker and you're watching us, I would absolutely love for you to vote for that.
And if you're a person that can call a lawmaker and encourage them to vote for that.
Yeah, do that. So I want to kind of touch on, well, first we have the question that I told you we were gonna go to. Jordan Ricks is our top fan. We love him. He watches us every week and he always has really good questions. So I'm just going to read the question right here. He says, I value Mississippi valuing victim services over charging the victims like most states I've seen. In regard to what citizens and law enforcement are looking for, how does human trafficking in Mississippi differ from what we see nationally, if any, and what unique challenges does that create for law enforcement? Favian, you want to take that one first or general?
Go ahead.
I can try it.
Okay.
So because we train a lot, as we're going to other states, it's almost similar. A lot of what we do here with our operations, they come from other states. And that's based off of the training. There's a guy, Dan Nash. Dan Nash is awesome. He goes around, he teaches just about everything for human trafficking. It may be IMBs, it may be out-call operations, it may be in-call operations. It's the way that he teaches his courses. Anything that comes with human trafficking, everyone basically does it the same way. And it's like, as long as everybody is doing it the same way, then there shouldn't be any problems. Now, just according to Dan, it's like when he was going around teaching at first, he would see a lot of mess ups. And it was arrest the females, arrest the victims, arrest this individual. It's not always about making the arrest. And so when we partnered with Dan, and we once we partnered with him, it was like, hey, don't arrest the victims. Hey, this is how you talk to them. And we started doing that, and we started getting better results. The results were through the roof. It was like, oh, the victim, she's actually having a conversation with us. She would enter into the room, or like on an operation, she would enter into the room, have a brief conversation with them, and then we'll push them over to our victim advocates. And then they would take over with that victim. And it's like, we'll go back in and we'll try to interview that victim. They will tell you everything because victim advocates have already, like, they've built that trust with that victim. And so I say that Mississippi is just about the same. Like, we run it just like Alabama, just like Louisiana, Tennessee. We all collaborate. So if we have something that crosses that state line, we communicate with Texas, we communicate with Louisiana, we let them know what we have. And then they say, hey, we got that victim on a operation here 2 weeks ago. It's like, oh, really? Can you send me a report? And then we tie it with our investigations, like, who's the trafficker? We pull that trafficker out. It's just like, okay, same one we got. And then that's how we kind of tie our cases. All of our cases are just about the same. So all of the states, if we do it just like Tennessee or, Alabama or, Louisiana, we'll all be on the same page when it comes to like our operations and human trafficking.
It's an excellent point about the cooperation and the coalition and everyone working together. That has been extremely successful. So we are having the conversation. Favian and his team, we're all talking to the other states. We're watching for these individuals. We are looking for the traffickers. That has been monumental to have that opportunity to visit with one another, to share information. We did an operation last year. We all know that one of the largest human trafficking events in the country is the Super Bowl. So we always partner with our other states. So we partnered with Louisiana last year. We did it just for a few days because we knew people were coming across. They were coming into Louisiana, and so we knew they were going to be coming across on the coast and into Louisiana. I'll let Favian give you all the numbers, but we called it Operation Game Over.
I love it.
Right.
So,
So we recovered. It was 5 total victims, and it was approximately 4 to 5 traffickers. We were staged at a location. Not going to disclose that information, but we were staged at a location. We set up an out-call operation. We would have the girls to come to the room, and then once the trafficker will make it to the parking lot, we'll make the arrest on the trafficker, and then we'll push the victim over to victim advocates. But at the same time, we also ran a reverse operation where we arrested a lot of Johns that were looking to purchase sex. So it was a big thing. It was one of our most successful operations last year. We kicked it off the right way, which was February. We kicked it off the right way, and we hit the ground running the entire year. So expect it again this year.
See, and I love hearing stories like that because General Fitch, and I don't think I have this wrong, but it feels like since you got in office, you've kind of worked to put Mississippi on the map in this arena, to kind of make this a priority and make it something that it feels like we're kind of known for it, for being tough on human traffickers and for putting a priority on the victims like this. What was it? I'm going to ask you a human question, not a work question, if you don't mind. But what was it in you that said, I want this to be part of how I establish myself as the AG? I mean, it feels like this is something that you have really spearheaded.
It has truly been a top priority for myself and the team because the draw for me was when I was originally, running for the Attorney General office, I saw all these victims and the people were coming through in other states in human trafficking. And I thought, gosh, we're sitting in areas where the interstates are coming. We've got so many different avenues in and out of our state. And I'm like, I feel sure we have that in our state. So researching it, and I said, you know what, if I'm fortunate enough and blessed enough to be in this position, we're going to go out there and really try to take these traffickers down. We're going to help those individuals. We're going to help those victims. And so it was really a tug on my heart because I just knew there were people out there that needed us all to come together and to really help them. And it is so rewarding when we have a victim and she says, thank you so much. I knew y'all were going to come get me. That makes every minute, every hour that we put into it to know that we've helped somebody.
And Favian, you're the task force supervisor, so that's your big job. But how much time do you spend thinking about that? I mean, like to you, obviously it's your job, but does it kind of take you up when you're off work too?
Oh, I think about it all the time. Even on like Saturdays or Sundays, like doesn't matter where I go. If just to know we've trained a lot. And so just to know what you know and the things that you see based off of like digital evidence and things like that, you kind of pay attention to signs. And there's a lot of red flags. If you go inside of a store and you see something, it's like, that might be it. That might be the one there. And so you start doing your homework. It's just like, all right, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna get the tag number. Sometimes you may not want to approach the situation, but you can always contact local law enforcement. Doesn't matter where you're at. You can be in Gulfport. If you're at Walmart, contact Gulfport and say, hey, check that out. You can always, you take your work laptop just about everywhere you go. And so we have different systems we use when we're scrubbing the internet, just locating people. And even if it's just like a photo, give us a photo. We'll take a photo, we'll put it into our system. It's just like, okay, we know who it is because they have been posting ads. We get tag numbers. It's all day. It's like a 24-hour thing. Saturdays and Sundays, doesn't matter where you go. You go to church on Sundays, it might be here at church. You just never know.
Well, and we have had on this podcast, we've had some of the Rankin County interdiction guys, and Centel Easterling had performed a traffic stop a couple of years back where he noticed that the driver was acting very strangely and that he had a 15-year-old girl with him. He asked the girl, who's that? And she says, that's my boyfriend, and he has a different story, and he starts to put these things together. And so, Amanda, I'm going to ask you kind of what Favian was talking about. I know that most of my friends who are cops, and by proxy, I do this too. It's like I'm always on guard. Like I'm always looking for things, like I see that. That's probably a crime. That guy's a criminal. He might be a psychopath. But when you are in a situation where you're looking at these things, do you see signs of trafficking after all the training that you've done when you're, say, like you said, like at Walmart or something?
I mean, I'm suspicious of everything all the time. I think that comes with law enforcement. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely when you look at older male, younger female, or there are several things that you can look at that individually, like isolated, that is not necessarily a guaranteed sign. However, if you get a string of things that kind of don't give you a warm and fuzzy feeling inside, it definitely it throws up a flag that something is off. And like he said, you can call local law enforcement if you don't want to get involved, or it's in your jurisdiction. You start collecting information and open up a case on Monday.
That's right.
Well, and Jordan's asking a question that we had kind of talked about a little bit, but how do local law enforcement kind of hone in on those? What should they be looking for on a traffic stop, or, on a beat, or that kind of thing?
Well, and I think it's certainly for law enforcement to look at, and they're going to be much more prone to it because most of them have had some training and some exposure. But I think to our communities, we have to continue to educate people because they are our greatest tips. If they see someone, to contact law enforcement to let us know. So I think we have to continue to tell everyone in the public, hey, look, if you see a young woman and that individual, the parent, the guardian, the boyfriend has complete control over her, won't let her out of sight, stands and waits at the bathroom while they're in there, they look unclean, or they look, very famished, or be looking for signs like that, or bruises, or things like that might be great indicators that this individual may be trafficked. So I think it really kind of gets everybody's radar up to start thinking about that. And then we'll get the tips, and certainly law enforcement is very aware, but then we can say, hey, and the Simply Report has been amazing because it's a free app, first one in the nation. And I do like that we are leading the nation. I like that Mississippi is so recognized as being a national leader in the human trafficking and the helping our victims, because we look at it from every perspective. But with Simply Report, that's so easy now. So if you don't even want to have any contact, you can say, hey, I'm sitting here at the corner of whatever at this convenience store, and this young girl looks like she's trafficked. You don't have to give your name. You don't have to do anything. It might send back and say, what color shirt does she have on, or something like that, to help identify, so that we can immediately get to the report's going to come into us, but we can then get that out to the local law enforcement. But I think having our public understand, hey, look for these signs. If that young girl is not making eye contact, or that young girl is very shy going through the convenience store or navigating away from any crowds, or there's someone that's just total control of her, hey, those are pretty good signs that this individual is being trafficked. And it's not always young women. There are young men, too. We primarily see mostly young women, but I think you have to be in tune for the young men as well as the young women.
And that's what I was going to ask, too, is how often are you working a case? We talk about this as generally young women. That's what we tend to think of it as. But there are young men, and sometimes that's even harder to get people to report, just because, this whole thing is the control comes from the shame. So when you guys have that situation, how do you make them feel safe?
It's the same process. We actually, last year we recovered 2 males. We look at it like, oh, it's just females. Mm-hmm. We recovered 2 males on an operation. We got them the services that they need. We pushed them over to victim services. I'm not sure exactly how victim services handled their situation, but once we recovered them, they went over to victim services. But they're posting ads as well, and they may be posting the ads based off of how they feel, or but that they want to post the ads. It may not be anyone behind scenes, but at the same time, you still treat them as victims, even if it's, I just need the extra cash for tonight.
Sure.
You still treat them as a victim because they're posting the ads.
Well, and that there was an operation that I rode along with several years ago, and and this isn't about a male victim, but one thing that was interesting was this lady had been dropped off at one of these hotels where they go by her friend. And so, she had gotten online and we had an officer that had gone in to see her. And her story was, well, my friend dropped me off. This is where I stay. She'll be back later. She just went to go get groceries. She'll be gone for a little while. And so at some point, it became very clear to us that the friend was actually the pimp, or the trafficker. But she looked like just a mom. She just looked like these are probably two girlfriends just hanging out. Or could have been. I mean, there were some things about it that would have raised your alarms. But to me, that's one of the interesting things when we talk about what should people look for. It doesn't always have a particular look, does it?
It don't. There's so much that you can look for. It's just the red flags. Fearful, may not make eye contact. The tattoos. It's the smallest thing that you would overlook, that it would show you that this is likely trafficking. He's holding her IDs wherever they go. It's the things like that. Now there is relationships where the male or the husband holds his wife's ID. She may not have a purse that time, but that's just one red flag. But then if you start looking at other factors, how is he treating her? Is he mean to her? Is there some type of manipulation going on? Is he coercing her to do something? Just different. It's the small red flags that you see, and you're just like, okay, that's a trafficking situation. But if you just suspect one red flag, it's like, okay, he has her ID. You can still assess the situation, and that's what I would do. I would assess the situation. But if I'm only getting one indicator, it's like, okay, that's a little bit difficult, and that will make our investigation a little harder. If I'm only shown that he has her ID or there's a bruise, it may just be a domestic violence situation.
And that's still a jerk, though.
Right, exactly. And I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. But these are things that we look for when it comes to trafficking. Just different indicators.
We do get some interesting tips along the way because, again, it's always about the broad expansion of knowledge. School bus drivers now have to be certified in human trafficking before you can drive a school bus in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that we pushed for too, because many times they're the ones that see these children, and the schools are very good about it. But just pushing out that information, having people look all the time, and so it may not be a human trafficking event every time in an individual, but hey, we might be saving some life. It may very well could be. So it's really important that the information, we look for tips from every direction, and we try to get everybody engaged to look for. It may not be all the indicators, but it may be part of them. And then that gives us the opportunity to go, let's really follow up on this individual. Let's see what their home life is like. Let's see if they continue to come to school, or do they miss school, or things that would be potential indicators for these young children.
I know that throughout my experience working with the operations and investigations, where I've come in contact with people who are, I hate to say voluntarily, but voluntarily participating in prostitution, when you get down to a conversation with them, every single one of them says, I don't want to live this life. And there's always some type of past abuse. So I think that's great that you brought up the point that, yes, we're training people to constantly look for trafficking. However, while you're looking, you could also notice something that leads to some other type of abuse. And unfortunately, that abuse, if continued, could lead down a path of possibly trafficking or possibly, going into prostitution to be able to support a drug habit or a plethora of other types of not great paths. So it's huge for people to look at everything and know that it could lead to something, even if not trafficking.
Well, and I think for a long time when we talked about prostitution, that Pretty Woman thing hung over it. There were people who believed that there could be a Cinderella story, and sure there could, but I think that it took it, in my mind, I did believe that maybe there were some girls out there that were just like, hey, look, I got this fancy man with this fancy car, and this is how I got him. and that's very simplified. Let me say that. But it's almost like I just want to say very clearly that you're not going to find people who want to live like this. I mean, that's not the rule. And so, when you talk to men who have been Johns or things like that, and it's, well, but I didn't think I was hurting anybody because she was putting herself out there for it. I was just paying for it. No, that's somebody who has been hurt and you are continuing the hurt, whether it's trafficking or, voluntarily, as you said.
Participating.
One thing about the continued hurt, so many of these victims also have substance abuse problems.
Correct.
So now when we do the recovery, we also know that they have an issue the majority of times with the drugs that they've had to take, pushed down from the trafficker so that they would repeatedly do what they have to do to get through that day, that night, or whatever. And that makes it extremely hard. It's an emotional roller coaster when we do recover these victims. And then you add the substance abuse issue on top of it. It's a tough situation.
Well, and that I have a legal kind of question for you when it comes to that. So my friend that was trafficked, part of her story was that it started off with this was her boyfriend, and then she was living in an apartment that he was paying for, and then it was like, hey, I don't have the money for the apartment. Could you start, helping me? And then he would invite his friends over, and then it was like, oh, now we need the electric bill. And there was this constant, like, you can't go anywhere. You have to do this to pay the bills. Here, take some drugs. It'll help you stay up longer, or it'll help you, zone out. Is there, when you have a situation like that, is there a kidnapping charge since they're being held against their will? Is there anything you can tack on to it for that basic captivity that some of them live in?
Well, you certainly look for every angle that you can. That's more difficult to prove, depending, particularly on their age. But you certainly look for that. You look for other ways, other charges that you could bring against this individual. But that's a very common situation, what you just described. It's very hard for particularly those young girls to get out of that situation. They don't have money. They don't have their driver's license. We talked to one of the survivors, and she didn't have anything. So there was nowhere for her to go. Right. Until she finally said, I'm out. Thank you for coming to get me and to allow me to have a new pathway. I think it's a really hard situation for these individuals, and they do have complete control.
Yeah, that's part of the, force, fraud, and coercion. That's what you have to prove. So the threatening or kind of coercion, I guess, falls on, it's kind of an umbrella. Yeah.
Well, and given that these situations can be so dangerous and it's so hard for them to get out of, and there's so much fear involved, how do you keep them safe during the investigation and the prosecution of it?
Again, just trying not to re-traumatize them. As long as victim services are staying in contact with them, because our job, as far as law enforcement, our job is to make sure that they are safe and make sure that there's dignity there. We have to make sure that we care. We have to show care. If you don't show care, she's going to go right back and she's going to continue to do what she's doing. But the most important thing is to make sure victim services stay in contact with her. And then when it's time for court, let's not continue to send her to court because she revisits this. She revisits the the trauma. She revisits the trauma. But if you take a step back and say, okay, is she needed for court today? I wouldn't have her in court the entire week. It's like, is she needed today? Let her come, let her testify, get her out. And that's the most important thing, making sure that, we just don't re-traumatize her. She's important. She's important just like everybody else is important. So that's the way we protect her.
And victim services, they are incredible partners. They are out there day in and day out helping these individuals, really taking care of them. That's just an important, critical part of getting them ready, getting them in for court, and being protective and just adhering to their needs. And again, it's just such an emotional situation for them. And as Favian was saying, you never want to re-traumatize them. But I will say it's very powerful when we get to the point and the victim gets to take her life back. She gets it back from that trafficker. And I think that is her launch off into her new life and her recovery and her journey.
Well, and I think that was going to be my last question because we're getting close to the end here. But, and again, it's a human question. It's not necessarily a law enforcement question, but it has to mean something to you. And I realize that part of an investigation is we've done our work, we turn it over, it's prosecuted, and then we move on to the next thing, because if you stayed in those moments, it'd drive you crazy because you're seeing so much humanity. But what does it mean to you to know that there are people, I can't even say without crying, whose lives are changed and better because of what you've done and what you've done?
It is an incredible feeling to know that we've been able to help individuals, that their life has changed and that they're no longer living in that capacity, and they have been able to regain their power. They get their life back, and they weren't going down that pathway. And it is extremely, it's such a blessing, and for all of us to be able to do that, to do it as the entire team, and to see that individual be successful and to be that survivor, which is everything that she deserved.
Fabian, what about you?
I agree. I agree with Attorney General Lynn Fitch. You just got to make sure that that victim is safe. When I tell you it's a rewarding thing, when they come in and they say, "So glad that you all came. Today was the day. He told me that I owed $1,000." And she's just like, "I'm really short today. I don't have much time left." And these are things that you would see when you actually go through the digital evidence. You would see that he actually made her pay $1,000, or he requested that $1,000. And so for her to get out of that situation on that day, we were in the area at the time before she got into a situation with him. We were able to step in and take control. And so that's the most rewarding thing. I mean, they like, I applaud it. It's like, if I see work from the team, anyone from the team, it's like, man, I appreciate that. That was awesome. Just making sure that they're safe, making sure that the victims are comfortable. Those are important things when it comes to human trafficking. And so I love the operations. I love the team. I love doing what we do. I mean, hey, I want to continue doing this. We're actually changing lives here.
Realize on that day you were pretty much just this avenging angel that she never could have seen coming.
That's right. It was like she didn't have the money at all. As you're going through her items to make sure, that there's no drugs or, weapons, things like that, you can tell she was short. She didn't have the money at all. It was 8, 9 o'clock that night. That's a lot of money to make in 3 hours. So that was important. We was able to, recover that girl or that victim and get her over to victim services where she needed help, where she could get help.
And I have to say, it's an amazing team. The Attorney General's office, the team, come to work, always ready to help. And what a blessing to be able to work with this team and to work with our partners.
Absolutely. Amanda, closing thoughts?
I'll leave it to you to ask the emotional question at the end.
That's what I do.
It's not a successful podcast unless someone is in tears.
That's what we do.
But truly, I can just tell how much passion y'all have for working these cases, and I think that's what's important, is the passion behind it. And I pray that God continues to lead y'all.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Thank you for having us on, and blessings to you and for all that y'all both do.
Thank you. Well, and I also want to say one of the comments we had earlier was Anthony Fox. Speaking of you guys being avenging angels, both of us are good friends of Anthony's, and we're there through that whole thing. And you guys just came out of nowhere and saved the day, and we just want to thank you for that too. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What a great guy he is.
Oh, yeah. Now we're all going to cry. So we're going to let you go. Thank y'all so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for listening or watching wherever you are. If you try to watch on my channels, I will be out of Facebook jail on February 27th, and we'll be back. In the meantime, catch us on Investigation Homicide. You can catch us on our YouTube, on any of your favorite podcast platforms. Thanks again to Southern Connection for all they do. Tell them you heard about them on Investigation Homicide. Join us again next week. Bye, Amanda.
Bye. I need to go to Southern Connection now.
Yes.